From the Broadcast Center at BCIT's Burnaby Campus, this is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good morning. It is currently 11 a.m. I'm Grace McLeod with your news update. We will begin with our news with an update in the Israel war. Residents in Gaza are facing imminent loss of electricity as fuel supplies run dangerously low in the sealed-off territory. Israeli airstrikes left entire neighborhoods demolished earlier today, and hospitals in the Gaza Strip are struggling to treat the injured with dwindling medical supplies. The war has claimed more than 2,200 lives on both sides and is expected to escalate. The weekend attack that Hamas said was retribution for worsening conditions for Palestinians under Israeli occupation and has inflamed Israel's determination to crush the group's hold in Gaza. Foreign governments are tallying their death and missing as the latest Israel-Palestine war stretches into its fifth day. In local news, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly says the federal government is planning to airlift Canadian citizens, permanent residents, their spouses, and children out of Tel Aviv in the coming days with help from the Canadian Armed Forces. 2 Canadians were among hundreds killed by Hamas gunmen while attending a music festival in southern Israel over the weekend. Friends and family have identified the Canadian victims as 22-year-old Ben Mizrachi from Vancouver and former Montreal resident Alexander Look, who recently celebrated his 33rd birthday. Conservative Foreign Affairs critic Michael Chong criticized the federal government, saying it has failed to provide timely assistance to Canadians needing help to leave Israel. Loneliness and isolation are 2 conditions that were enhanced throughout the COVID pandemic and still affect many Vancouver residents. Our reporter Anthony Antanasov has more on why young people are one of the loneliest demographics.
According to Stats Can, Vancouver is one of the loneliest cities in Canada. However, what is most surprising is that people aged between 18 to 24 reported feeling lonelier among other age groups. While this particular group is more transient, with young people often leaving home to go to college, there seems to be a belongingness that is missing, and young people aren't as involved in community as they could be. Jim Dyers, the former director for the Department of Neighborhoods for Seattle, outlines how important it is to have young people involved and to work off their skills to promote change.
How do we bring more people into that activism and bring more people into community? Because there's so much young people have to offer, including their expertise in social media, which can be a great tool for making change.
Dyers will be speaking to the new Westminster City Council Wednesday on what community initiatives could be put into place to reduce loneliness. This is Anthony Atanasov with 1680 The Crow.
And new data shows the number of individuals experiencing homelessness in Vancouver has risen 32% this year compared to 2020. The Crow's Ben Bagara explains more about how one group is disproportionately disproportionately affected.
While they only make up 2.4% of the region's population, Indigenous people represent a third of Metro Vancouver's homeless population. This comes as new data from the Homelessness Services Association of BC shows a dramatic increase in the homeless population over the last 3 years. According to the report, close to 60% of Indigenous people experiencing homelessness are unsheltered. Over 60% of the population reported having a history with the residential school system. Ben Bugura, 1680 The Crow.
All right, we are here with Ben to talk more on his report. Hello, Ben.
Hello, Grace. Good morning.
Good morning. I have a few questions for you. My first question is, obviously these numbers are very staggering. What other information does the report show?
Well, Grace, the Indigenous homeless population has obviously gone up quite a lot in the last 3 years. So it's 821 people this year, and compared to 2020, it was 711. So that's a big increase, over 100 people.
All right. And second question is, how much has the number of Indigenous people experiencing homelessness gone up since 2020?
Again, like that was the increase there, and we're obviously seeing a lot of that increase here, Grace. Like it's up 32% overall of the people, and like obviously over 100 people more than in 2020 over the last 3 years. So it's staggering, and obviously it's seeing the history there, and these numbers, 58% of these people are unsheltered and spend the night on the streets and getting into cold conditions. This is obviously a huge issue that needs to be addressed.
Okay, and thank you, Ben. All right. Also in BC, wildlife biologist Wayne McCrory says the science is crying out for grizzly bear habitat protection as industrial activities eat away at the landscape the animals depend on. But McCrory says BC's draft grizzly stewardship plan doesn't meaningfully address habitat loss for the bears, which are listed as special concern under Canada's Species at Risk Act. McCrory is among dozens of groups and individuals who signed an open letter sent to provincial officials last week, saying urgent science-based action is needed. He says he's concerned that people who want to see grizzly hunting return to BC will be able to influence management decisions. A male youth was arrested after a fire was reported in washrooms on Deck 6 of the Spirit of British Columbia ferry on yesterday's 7 p.m. sailing. Police were called by BC Ferries about 8:40 p.m., who reported that a fire had been set in one of the washrooms, said North Saanich Sydney RCMP Constable Brent Vose. Vose also says the ferry crews quickly extinguished the fire. Police arrived at the ferry was pulling into Schwartz Bay. They searched for and arrested a youth of no fixed address who matched the description they were given. He was released on an undertaking to appear in court at a future date of charge of mischief. This incident resulted in the 9 p.m. sailing, leaving Schwartz Bay about 45 minutes late. Finishing off our local stories, a new campaign this fall is aimed at educating the province about the proper use of smoke alarms. The Ignite Awareness Extinguish Fires campaign will run for 4 weeks and include advertisements through radio, television, social media, and bus stops. A report in June from Fire Commissioner Brian Goldington found that only 45% of BC homes that experienced fires last year had working smoke alarms. Godlinton says working smoke alarms are the easiest and most effective way to reduce the risk of fire-related injuries and deaths. In our national news, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is set to visit the Northwest Territories today. He's scheduled to see the first-hand effects of some of the areas ravaged during the record wildfire season. Reporter Karen Rebo with the Canadian Press explains a little more.
The Northwest Territories saw nearly 70% of its population displaced during this year's unprecedented fire season, including a 3-week evacuation order that forced around 20,000 people to flee the capital, Yellowknife, and a nearby First Nation. Today, the PM is expected to visit Hay River, where he'll meet with local leaders and visit some fire-scorched sites. A fast-moving fire in August ripped through the highway hamlet of Enterprise, south of Hay River, destroying destroying nearly all of that community's homes and structures. 95 wildfires were still burning in the territory as of yesterday. Karen Rebo, the Canadian Press.
And in sports news today, all 7 Canadian teams will play their season openers tonight in the NHL. The Toronto Maple Leafs opened the 2023-2024 campaign against fellow Original Six franchise and rival, the Montreal Canadiens, at Scotiabank Arena. Ottawa is the lone Canadian team to not face a squad from north of the border. The Senators will play Raleigh, North Carolina, to face the Carolina Hurricanes. The Edmonton Oilers are in Vancouver to take on the Canucks at Rogers Arena. Meanwhile, the Winnipeg Jets open the year in Calgary at the Saddle Dome to battle with the Flames. Toronto, Edmonton, and Winnipeg all made the playoffs last season. The Jets were ousted in the first round by eventual champions Vegas. Also in hockey, it was a celebration of first for North Vancouver's Connor Bedard, as the rookie recorded his first NHL point in his first pro game and picked up his first win, as the Chicago Blackhawks defeated the host Pittsburgh Penguins 4-2 in the season opener for both squad last night. Corey Perry, Jason Dickinson, Ryan Donato, and Cole Gutman scored for the Hawks. Bedard assisted on Donato's marker. Sidney Crosby and Brian Rust scored for the Pens. Hawks netminder Peter Inmazik stopped 38 to 40 shots. In the Olympic news, it is sad for a day for a legendary gymnast who is currently clinging to life. Daria Albringer with ABC has more on the story.
Mary Lou Retton is in the intensive care unit of a Texas hospital where she's being treated for a rare form of pneumonia. Her daughter, McKenna Kelly, says the 55-year-old legendary Olympian is fighting for her life and that she cannot breathe on her own. At the 1984 Games, the then 16-year-old Retton became the first American woman gymnast to win the Olympic all-around title. Kelly started a fundraising campaign to pay for her mother's medical expenses, saying Retton does not have health insurance. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
And in weather news for today, it is currently 14 degrees outside and we are to expect a high of 16 degrees. Thankfully, it doesn't look like rain is coming our way. We are only to expect a mix of sun and cloud with a little bit of wind. Those were your 11 a.m. news updates. I'm Grace McLeod, 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretanero.
And I'm Radhika Siggi-Kane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.